Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Happy Hour podcast. Of course, my name's Ray. I'm being joined by Psycrotes, and we're being joined by Matt Fischer from Scissorfist. He's joining us tonight, and we're going to be joined by
the High Priest of Hardcore.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, the High Priest of Hardcore Wrestling, who was able to show up every single week, and Al Snow still has not made his presence known. So we're going to be joined. We're going to be joined relatively shortly by Dr.Jen Welter. We're supposed to go on at 8:00, but a few things got messed up with time zones. Of course, we're being joined via GoPro tonight, our brand new GoPro webcam that we got for free through Amazon. So thank you, Amazon, for giving us a free GoPro.
Thank you for your donation to the Happy Hour podcast. We appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you for your donation to the Happy Hour podcast.
If Jeff Bezos can give his ex-wife $30 billion, he can give you a GoPro.
Oh yeah.
I think everybody should get a GoPro out of that motherfucker. Why not? We're all giving them enough money at this point.
For an Amity Affliction shirt.
$26 for an Amity.
Yeah, it was like $7 shipping.
You do not have Prime, or you're looking at something on?
No, of course. There's Jen right there, so we're going to go ahead and admit her in. And I mean, definitely, it's definitely working out. I'm not sure if we're going to use this camera view every week, but we will definitely experiment around since we have the brand new GoPro. It helps out when we do a lot of live stuff too. So, the live events that we're getting ready to do in the next 2 weeks, we'll be able to do a lot with that. So
live events, eh?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Of course, next week we have us being at Hysteria Brewing Company. And hey, Jen, how are you doing?
Welcome to the how you doing? What's up, guys? How we doing?
Not too much. Of course, I'm Ray. This is Psycrotes, and we're being joined by Matt Fischer. He has a band called Scissorfist, and it's a pleasure to talk to you. I mean, you're such a trailblazer, the first female NFL coach in history. How that's just amazing. How you're a Madden 20. Like, how does it feel to be able to be a part of all that? And, football has always been a very male dominated sport, to not only, you played also, to not only play, but also to be a coach for the Arizona Cardinals. How did all that feel?
Well, when you say trailblazer, I always laugh because all that means is that we're the ones who take all the branches to the face, right? Like, that's all that means. Like, you're going through a place where there is no trail and you're like, oh, this looks good. And then it's like, oh, wait. Oh, stop. Hold on. Let me chop that down. And then so hopefully the next person has an opportunity to go through with a little less contact to the face, right? Like that really is what it is. And it is a lot of just really saying, okay, well, how can we figure this out? Or why is it this way? And what can we do about it? And, it's not necessarily what a lot of people imagine, which is like setting this big goal and working backwards. It's literally just showing up every day, putting your head down and saying, all right, what do we got to do? Like Madden didn't happen that they were like, yes, we're going to have a female in here. We're going to change this. It actually happened when I met Mike Young and Robin Cowie, who were the director and producers of Story Mode in Madden. Okay. And I was teaching them zone coverages with pizza because that's what was there. And it's actually very logical with zones. You picture that the soft spot in the zone is where you are in between the pizza. So if you've got cover 3, it's 3 slices. You've got the seams right there. Yeah. And I was kind of cracking them up with that. And then they had that moment of like, are you thinking what I'm thinking? And I'm like, what are you guys thinking? And they had already written the Story Mode script for the next time. Okay. And there was a reporter in it who was, she just had a lot of attitude. She's like, yeah, I do this. This is football, right? Yeah. And they were like, oh my God, you could play her. And I'm like, ooh, I don't know, talk football? Like what? And they were like, that's totally her. And so it wasn't me. I was playing a character. And then in the process of getting to know each other and them really learning more about my story, then they were kind of like, we did this and it was really cool, but we don't feel like it was enough because it's not even you. Yeah. And so it evolved that I kind of became like, where is Waldo in Madden 20 and 21? Because I'm not myself and I am also myself in Superstar KO mode. So that's a lot of, just how those things evolve is
A lot of
meeting
moving
people.
parts.
Yeah, and meeting people and having real conversations about things that can be changed and how we can change them. And that means you have to be willing to be visible and be vocal and kind of be an instigator.
I gotta say, when I was 12 and dominating the very first Madden game that came out in '93, I didn't think 30 years later we'd be on a podcast talking to somebody who's actually in the game.
And of course, Madden it's crazy how much Madden has evolved over the years. And you remember the first couple of Maddens.
Oh, yeah.
I remember the very first Madden actually had John Madden on the cover.
Yep.
And I sat there and I always think about, they always talk about the Madden curse. And I'm like, well, did Madden experience the Madden curse in any way himself? But,
he's like the one guy who got off.
Or is it the Madden curse after him? Because he's like, none of you could be on a cover like I was on a cover.
I mean, his name is the game. How do you measure up to that?
Right. I mean, it's hard. You can't. It Madden is a whole thing in and of himself, right?
Yeah.
I think it's funny how a lot of people nowadays know him more for the game than actually being the coach of the 70s, infamous Raiders.
Well, I mean, of course they do. I have kids that know me from Madden that don't know that I coached in the NFL. And they might know it because of that. But like I was at a tournament in Vegas maybe about a month ago now, and this adorable boy came up to me and he looks at me, and I was there like mostly just supporting. I wasn't there in any official capacity. So, I'm just like watching the games and messing around with some of the different players who I knew. And he walks up to me and he goes, I know who you are. And, and I was like, do you? And he was like, yeah. I use your team on Madden all the time. And I was like, oh, you do? And he's like, yeah, these guys don't know. And I was like, right to all his teammates. And I think he was playing on 10 or 12U. So he's not like an older kid. And he goes, can I get a picture? And I said, absolutely, you can get a picture. And then I had some t-shirts in my bags because, if I do camps and then I have leftovers, like when I go to tournaments, I'll make sure to give them out. Everybody who doesn't want a t-shirt. And before you knew it, I'm taking a picture with him. And then I was like, do some of your teammates maybe want t-shirts? And he was like, yeah, they would. And I was like, so I gave him some. And then a bunch of these boys like came up. And what I love about that is, people think about the importance of having a female in the NFL or in coaching a lot of the times on the impact that it has on the girls. But it's so important to the boys as well, because, if they've played my team on Madden, then it wouldn't be strange to them to have me as a coach in real life. And that's a really cool element of where we can see, the integration between esports and sports and do it better is that, we don't yet have a female head coach in real life, right? Not in the NFL anyway, but you can have one in Madden. And those guys choosing to play my team, they're not doing it just because they want to have a female. They're choosing it because I do have the top rated defense. And so if you realize the defense wins championships, which we saw TBD last year. That is Todd Bowles' defense, in case y'all didn't know. TBD dismantle the Kansas City Chiefs. So if you know how important a good defense is, then you're choosing team touchdown. And by the way, you're going to have Coach Jen as your coach.
Of course.
And of course, we see on social media, you do all kinds of stuff. You do stuff with kids. What do you think is more so the highlight that you have out of everything you've done and being in the NFL? What do you think is probably the biggest highlight you have that you've been able to do with, your platform and being able to reach out to people and coach?
I don't know if it's one highlight. I think that's kind of the fun thing. Like, I'm a big kid at heart, so I like challenges. And if it's okay, we're going to change things for girls, right? Like that's Gridiron Girls, which I founded 4 years ago. We've done 38 camps across the country. And really, we kind of changed a lot of the conversation around girls in football, where it used to be like, oh, look, isn't that cute? She's playing at football, right? Yeah. And now we're like, no, she's playing ball. And we really invested in making sure the girls looked strong and powerful and badass in how we were capturing them, so that people were like, ooh, okay, like this is a thing and I want to do this. And, I even drew the logo, which is like fingernails through a football, and people know it now.
Okay.
Like, they're like, oh yeah, that's Gridiron Girls. Like, and I've had little girls come up to me at, tournaments that maybe I didn't get at a camp. Because we were shut down during COVID, but that's why I went to some of the tournaments just to, support them. And, they're like, it's like goals to be in a Gridiron Girls video one day. And I'm like, okay, we need to get you bigger goals, number one. But number two, what that means is that we've done a good job showing that, you could play this game and play it well. And that was a cool thing to do, which it wasn't really when I played. So that to me is really fun. And then, I'm working with some different, hopefully, companies that we can get their highlights out on a bigger platform, because I just think it's so important for them to see it. And then also now I have girls that are committing to colleges to play football.
Okay. Yeah.
And, so if you didn't know, the NAIA had their very first varsity girls flag football season last year.
That's cool.
Yes.
That's cool.
So for the first time in the history of football, girls could change the trajectory of their life.
Okay.
Through education, through playing football, which we all know boys have had forever. So now these girls can actually go to school as ballers. And I had a bunch of girls that I worked with in the inaugural season, a lot of them at St. Thomas University, because we did some stuff with Uncle Luke in Miami. But those seeds are continuing to bear fruit, because I have another 2 girls from even that same camp, just for example, that were like, hey coach, I just wanted you to know I got offers here, and like, this is where I'm going to go. And to be able to like post those and be like, look, the Gridiron Girls are going here and there. It's like, it's crazy to me. And then we also have some of these younger girls who, like there's a group out of Boston, that there's a whole group of them that came to, I think it was my 3rd camp. So it was almost 4 years ago now. Right. So maybe, 3 and 8 months, because we started in October. Right. And these girls have now been playing for over 3 years. And some of them are playing, like 9U, 10U. So one of the girls, like Kaylee, who I think about, she just turned 9, and she came to her first camp with me when she was 4.
Wow.
Right? Like,
raising them up in it.
I mean, and these girls are cold. Like, there's a video of little Kaylee on there that I just posted on Reels, and everybody's like, holy cow. And I'm like, yeah. And they get to grow up, with opportunities that I never had. So that's why I, push for them so hard, but why it gets so exciting to me. Like, I didn't get to play football till I was 22. Imagine what I could have done in football if I was playing, like these girls are at, whether it's 4 or 5, 10, 14 years old, getting to play high school, getting to play college. Like, that to me is like crazy.
And how far do you think we are off of having a first female NFL play, and having females incorporated actually playing into the NFL? Because you see what I watch a lot of these girls who are beasts. I'm a huge baseball fan, who are just beasts at playing softball. And you're like, man, if you can get them to hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, they will be able to just absolutely kill it in the major leagues. And that's the thing, is that me and Psycrotes, we come from a wrestling background, pro wrestling. Yep. And you see the whole women's revolution now, and it's like some of those girls can go out there and outwork 90% of some of those guys out there, and that's just the thing. It blows you away, and I think that we're kind of on the brink that probably within the next 5-10 years.
Do you think probably before that there's a possibility there could be a women's professional league of their own, like the WNBA? Do you think that's a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, so there are women's tackle football leagues now. I think the goal of that is to get the women paid, right? Because right now they're doing what I did my whole career, and essentially paying to play for the love of the game. And these girls can ball. If you have not yet seen them play, you need to tune in to like the WNFC, check out the Texas Elite Spartans. I mean, they're playing in their season right now, and those women are dominant, right? Those are my roots. That's the squad that essentially that's a lot of the women who I played with when it was the Dallas Diamonds. Odessa Jenkins founded that team and that league to really, as they always say, step the game up of women in football, and to really do it on all levels professional, so that the dollars make sense, that then people will invest in women's football. And so to do that, I've always said we need a couple of elements. Number one, we need, what obviously we started in Arizona, but now there are lots of women up there who are coaching in the NFL, because that gives you permission to dream on it. Right now, I can look at it and say, this is something that's possible. So that's one of the elements. Number two, you need to go to the grassroots and get the girls playing earlier, so that they're better and the skill set is more evolved. It's not just like it was for me. And at 22 years old, I'm playing for the first time, right? Even if these girls are playing flag, then you can evolve to tackle, or, you have the route concepts and all that stuff and those skills developed, so that if they switch into tackle or if they continue to play flag, they're cold, right? Like they're not just coming in and being like, oh my gosh, I have to learn, and football is complicated and it's all these things, right? So these girls are talented, and you can't watch them and not be like, oh, she did that, right? Like, and that's what you want. So you get the young girls playing early, you get the end game well established, and then you develop the feeder system where, hopefully, like, there are a lot of us that are pushing, and I say it's 50-50 for equality, 50 states, 50 girls playing varsity high school flag football. So they have opportunities to play there. And then can we get it in the collegiate systems that NAIA has led? The NJCAA is coming on next year. The NCAA has to come on soon, because number one, they just messed it up with March Madness. And number two, it's an easy Title IX equalizer. Number three, it's also more internationally available because it's cheap, right? It doesn't have the barriers to entry that tackle does. So the international game is really strong. And that means that you'll see it be an Olympic sport. And the NFL just announced, like yesterday or the day before, that they would back a bid to have it be a conditional sport in the Olympics in 2028.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that changes everything, right? So now you're going to see the girls that are playing being able to train and dedicate like Olympic athletes. And then you're going to see all of those different changes that you're asking about, whether it's, should the goal be that you want a woman to play in the NFL? I mean, I would hope not. Right? Like I played in men's tackle football. I did that. Okay. But that makes you an exception to the rule. You never have a place where it gets to be a new established rule. Right. And I would like to see a place where women are playing and getting paid to play football in a league of their own.
Okay. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you about this, because I haven't heard anything about the franchise in a while, but there was a league out there, and they changed their name a couple of years ago. It seemed like they tried to legitimize it a little bit. It was the Lingerie Football League, and I think they went to the Legends Football League, I believe. What was your thoughts on that?
What legends do you know that are made in lingerie?
Not many.
Hey, last time I was on this podcast, there was one.
We did have porn stars. So.
Yeah.
I feel like that when they did it, they kind of did it as a gimmick. They were like, okay, well, they used, and that's the thing, like, with pro wrestling, anything. So I think they kind of went with that. And then, they changed the name, and they gave the girls, they had more of a uniform. And I was like, okay, I feel like, and I didn't hear anything about an outcry, but I feel like that they were actually kind of like, hey, some of these girls are good.
It was definitely, I watched, like watching some of it. It was kind of, it became corny. Yeah. It's like, this is just corny. Like, I guess like, this is like some idea that like, some dude drunk at a bar come up with, like, but like the athleticism was so good, and like because I would watch it when it would come on like random times, and it's like you just see these girls out there crushing it, and it's like maybe can we make this a little bit more like not so tongue in cheek?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. There were great athletes in it, and these were a lot of women who wanted to play football. Some of them wanted to play at football, right? They wanted to use it as a springboard to whether it was an acting career or a modeling career. You could see that. Whereas others of them really wanted to play football, and that was whether it was the only option there or the one that they first turned on to, like that's what it was. And I'm not going to discount and say that there weren't some great athletes in it. That wouldn't be fair. But what I would say is at a time that we're looking to actually protect our men more, right? How can we protect them better in football? Why are we undressing our women?
Yeah.
Right.
And their uniforms, like it was crazy. They didn't really have a lot of padding. Like they had like knee pads, they had like really small, shoulder pads and all. And I'm like, if one of those happens to get mad at another and they legit go, hey, screw her, I'm gonna just wreck her. That's the thing. They're gonna get hurt. And
most importantly, those weren't even football helmets. Like those aren't football helmets. You could see their whole face. So whether they were hockey helmets or lacrosse helmets, I
was like, were they like lacrosse, like kind of like lacrosse helmets or something? Like, and now that like I honestly totally forgot about this whole thing altogether up until we just brought it up now.
Right,
but I do like,
it's not made for the game of football, right? That helmet is not made for the game of football. So, there's no reason why women can't play the same game, with the same equipment and make it look great. People tune in and watch Pop Warner football.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would definitely watch a women's football league. Absolutely.
Right.
I mean,
they can play.
Yeah.
Right? These women are ballers.
I feel like that the lingerie football league was kind of like the first rendition of the XFL. And you kind of look at the first rendition of the XFL and you're just kind of like, it was kind of jokey. But now when you look at the most recent season they had before they had to abruptly end due to COVID, and then they got sold to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and his wife, you look at it as, man, they were selling out stadiums. And
they were doing really good in DC.
Yeah.
Serious.
Yeah. The brigade, there's a few guys I know who went to almost every brigade game that they had. The defenders, DC defenders were real big. And also not only were defenders known, but that snake, that beer snake that they made.
that was fantastic.
COVID, and they're making beer snakes out of beer cups, and it caught fire. So hopefully Dwayne Johnson can do that and get it rolling. But also football, I feel like the NFL is its own thing. It's a big conglomerate, but you need to have a women's league. You need to have they don't have a minor league system. That's the thing.
Right.
Football. You have the minor league. So if a guy doesn't do well, you can send him down to the minors, let him touch up, come back up, and that's the thing, even with the women, even if there's that, there still needs to be other things to where they can go to work out or touch up or,
For sure. And, I am a big proponent of whether it was the XFL or the AAF. Obviously I coached in the AAF, which was meant to be a development league for the NFL. And, it was doing well. Unfortunately, the money was funny and they closed it down in week 8. But, those of us who were committed to it, we had 3-year contracts. And yet I got to watch and witness as every single one of my D linemen, and this was my goal because I was a D line coach there, every single one of them went on and played somewhere else, be it to sign in the CFL, to get to camp in the NFL, or to go and play in the XFL. And just a shout out to the DC defenders. Most of those D linemen were mine. So just know where the talent came from. I just want you to know.
I did not know that. I did.
The story comes full circle.
Yes, absolutely did. You had Tracy Sprinkle, you had Tavares Barnes, you had Keyshawn Freeman, who actually was a defensive line pass rusher for us and an outside linebacker for y'all. But those were my guys, right? And there were other guys on that team who were also there because Louis Chofie, who was one of the coaches for the DC Defenders, came from us with the Atlanta Legends. He was our DC there. So he knew where the guys were. And of course they were all in my room. So,
so when you first started with the NFL, I mean, we've heard the egos of pro athletes can be hard to deal with, even for male coaches. So how much of a challenge was it for you to get these guys to, actually want to pay attention and listen to you?
I didn't find that challenging at all. Honestly, if you can make guys better, they'll listen. And for me, they were open to listen because they were really proud to be a part of history. Those guys were excited. And we were a lot more in common than we were different, because they were like, man, coach, we thought it was hard for us to get here, but for you, no way. And so they were fascinated by the journey. And y'all know this, but people think like women talk. Heck no, y'all guys talk way more than any women ever thought about doing it. Your your gossip tree is really chirpy, okay? Because like, I mean, I'm just saying, like, those guys knew everything about me before I even walked in the door. They had called people I played with in Dallas. They had called like dudes that were in Dallas, like, do you know this girl? What do you know about her? I mean, they had watched my game film. Like, there were no secrets by the time I got to Arizona, which to me, as an athlete, we already know if somebody watched your game film, that's like the ultimate sign of respect. Like, you were worth me checking out, and they had everything checked out. Now, one of the things I would say I did well in that situation is to not go in thinking that I had all the answers, because I didn't, right? Like, I hadn't been there. So I'm not going to go in and be like, you have to listen to me, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not the case. That's a choice. Anytime somebody listens to you, that's a choice. And it is a gift to give somebody your headspace, your heart space, any of that. So I went in, knowing, yeah, I'm here as a coach, but I'm going to be coachable, and I'm going to listen, and I'm going to pay attention, and I'm going to really work on establishing trust with the guys, and caring about them as people first, because when we have a good relationship, the football gets really easy. Right? Like, I need you to dip and rip and get to heel depth, and then you'll beat this guy, or half the body, or whatever it is. Like, those things become really relatively simple when you know that I actually care about you. And the fact that I would pick up on some of those things made the relationships different than you said. Like, is it hard to get them? They're hard to listen. Well, when you're listening to them, it's really not as hard. And one of my guys, Kevin Minter, said, funny enough, when somebody asked him about, what was he worried about having a female coach? It was like, well, were you worried about it? And he was like, well, I wasn't really worried about anything about a female specifically, but a lot of young coaches, they just come in and it's like they got to talk all the time to justify that they belong, right? And he was like, she never did that. She was just like real easy, which made it easy to know that she was right where she was meant to be. It's like anytime she said something, it was like, oh, okay. Like, it added value. And he was like, so you wanted to listen more. She wasn't nervous about it. It wasn't like, oh, you have to listen or you have to like me. He was like, coach was just like, and you could always talk to her about anything. And so, that's something that stood out to a lot of the guys, because it is an environment that's tough. And, the straight up truth is that with guys, sometimes it's harder on other guys especially if they didn't have like a great male role model in their own lives, right? A lot of guys have been coached by women, and there's not that inherent competition, because it's not, me versus you. And so they could relate to me in a different way. So I don't think it's better or worse, but I think it's a great addition or element to have on your staff. Plus they would all laugh because they're like, she got like that PhD. So there's like that mind control with her. Like, you got to watch out. Like, she
knew what they were thinking before they could even think it.
Happened all the time. And when we did like, who would your X-Man character be? Who do y'all think they had me as X-Man?
As which X-Men?
Yeah. Professor which X-Man?
Rogue.
Professor X or Jean Grey?
Jean Grey.
Yeah.
Oh, I said Rogue.
Look, well. But they literally said like, because she's got that mind control, and he's like, and that raspy voice, you can hear it anyway. It's like I could pick it out of a crowd. And then they said, and we all know the Phoenix is in there, and none of us wants to meet her, coach. And I was like, well, you're smart then. Mind your business.
And what we're going to do real quick for everybody listening at home, we're going to take a quick break, get a word in from some of our sponsors, play a song, and we'll be right back with Jen Welter. For those of you live, we're going to keep on going along with this. Welcome back to the Happy Hour podcast. Of course, I'm Ray. I'm being joined by Psycrotes this week, filling in for Matt, and Matt Fischer from Scissorfist, and
Hi.
Jen Welter. And what we're going to do is
new albums out.
We're going to get into our Ode to Humanity segment, which is our games. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with 5-second rule. Are you any familiar with 5-second rule?
I mean, isn't that when food hits the ground? You're not supposed to eat it after that?
5-second rule, what I'm going to pretty much say is name a certain thing, and you have 5 seconds to give me 3 answers. If you don't get it, it'll go to Matt, then it'll come to me, then I'll go to Psycrotes. If not, it's a dead round. So pretty much what I'm going to be, let me pull up the timer. What I want you to do is name 3 things you shout at a baseball game starting now.
Safe, out, and score.
Oh, you got right at the last second. You got it. All right. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to play a game called Incoherent. So Incoherent pretty much is I'm going to hold up a card. I'm going to single myself out here on the computer without knocking that over. I'm going to single myself out on the computer. Then that way you can see this. So let me pin myself. So it should show just me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold a card up. Can you read that okay?
Hamazana, let's
so you need to figure out what it says, and there's 2 hints on the back. So if you need me to give you some of the hints, let me know.
Yeah, let's go for a hint here.
All right. Hint number 1 is robot commands. Sometimes if you sound it out really quick and listen, you'll kind of hear what it is.
You got it? Big Fish, you got it?
Go
for it.
Am I allowed to answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
The Amazon Alexa.
Amazon Alexa, yes. The second was
Amazon Alexa.
Lights on your ASO 2016.
I was surprised that I'm not a really good riddle guy, but I was like, oh, I was sounding it out in my head, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, I know it.
And then let me go ahead and remove the pin so it goes back to seeing the rest of us. If this decides it wants to remove the pin. There we go. So back on here, and then I'm going to put this back on gallery view so I see everybody. And then, of course, we can't have our Ode to Humanity segment without Cards Against Humanity. And Jen, have you ever played Cards Against Humanity?
I have not.
You have not. Okay, so
you're in for a treat.
It's pretty much there's a face card. So I'm going to read off the black face card. Now, let it be known, this is a very awful game. Very, very awful game for awful-minded people.
Very nihilistic.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read off the face card, and I'm going to give you 4 options. And you let me know which option you think best answers the card. So the face card says, give me 10 good men and 48 hours. I'll get you blank. And your answers are, or your choices are, helplessly giggling at the mention of Huttus and Tustus, a soulful rendition of Old Man River, the world's largest baby weighing over 700 pounds, and accusing a powerful man of sexual assault.
I'm going to go with the second one.
The second one. All right. Yeah. So she's going to go with a soulful rendition of Old Man River. So Jen Welter says, give me 10 good men and 48 hours. I'll get you a soulful rendition of Old Man River.
Absolutely.
I was going to go with number 1 because a lot of people probably don't even realize that's a reference to the Rwandan genocide. Did you know
of
that?
Course you would know that. I have no idea what that even means. It was just a random pick card. And I'm like, hey, now, Jen, when you were playing, what would you say was probably the worst injury you personally sustained when you were playing football?
So knock on wood, I was definitely cared for from above for not sustaining a lot of injuries during my career. But the one that was recurring over probably a 2 or 3 year span was essentially a boxer's break in this hand right here. And it was my dip and rip hand. So I would rip through And you're not supposed to punch with these knuckles. Well, you can't really control that when you dip and rip.
Yeah.
And so I notoriously had to wrap my hand because there's not a lot they can do with it. That's the problem, right? With the boxer's break, there's not a lot you can do. So I would literally wrap my hand like a boxer. And so it was a joke because like I couldn't really squeeze my hand well because it's wrapped up like that in gloves. So there are definitely like there's footage of me on film like essentially looking like I'm slapping the ball away because this was like the baby hand and I couldn't really do that. Or I'd try and like catch it with one hand and then like put this one over. But yeah, that was a tough one because it kept coming back. But in terms of, I actually never missed a game because of injury. So like I said, I was very, very blessed in my career to stay really pretty healthy, especially having played against the guys. And even in that one, it was funny because we were on the field and it was indoor, so it was a small field, and we were working like end zone going into the end zone, and then the receivers were using the long part coming down, and we had a receiver named Clinton Solomon. He was former receiver with the Chicago Bears, one of the best dudes you ever want to meet, always looked out for me, and he was running a post down, and one of our D linemen was essentially standing like right behind me. So Solo couldn't see me and he saw Solo coming. And so he steps to the side. Well, Solo's full speed, never sees me and runs straight through me. And of course I like, fly. And I landed right on that hand and I put it down and immediately it swole up. Like there was no pretending that it wasn't broken. And Solo was, he was like right on the verge of tears. He's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I would never have done that on purpose." I'm like, "Solo, I know, right?" He was the last guy who would have cheap shot at me. He was the one who had my back. But he was like, "Mama, your hand." And you could see it immediately, which meant they could have obviously cut me. And it's mid-season and we've made it further than anybody thought that a female would make it in this. And the guys kind of like a few of them knew, and they're like, "We just got to cover. Like, we can't let them see it."
Yeah.
And so it was actually pretty amazing because like, even if I was doing like blitz pickup on some of the linebackers, they knew it was going to come kind of one-handed for a while because I just couldn't push with that hand. And none of them wanted me to get cut. So,
gotta look out for each other,
Yeah, you do. But especially in that situation where a lot of people thought that the guys would be resentful to have had a female on their team, the way they looked out and how we were to each other. The
way you're feeling like that as if you're a total dick, or just like I feel like that whole I guess like the stigma of like girls doing guy. I hope it's dying slowly.
Yeah.
And hopefully for good reasons. But it's just like I work in a warehouse. Forklift stuff like that. It was typically male dominated job. We got a couple women in there, and they're all fucking great. And one of them is my boss now. So like,
right.
It's just with everything. It's just good that all that bullshit's getting swept aside.
It is, but you know what? You know how we do that? We share those stories, right? Like, because if people don't know and they've not been in it, they're still going to go with the mentality of the guys hate this, right? And, or, they were against it or, whatever have you. And it tends to not be in favor of the guys, especially in the era where we have had to correct a lot of bad behavior. So when I can, provide the examples of how great guys have been to me in situations where they didn't have to, I think it's very special to share those because not everybody has had the opportunity to, kind of go head to head with those stereotypes and actually find out that we were a lot more alike than different and that those guys could be fantastic, right? That they didn't have to be the jerks. So that's why I'm so vocal about speaking up and sharing stories where they were freaking amazing, because I think that's what more people need to hear, because we hear a lot of the negative stories.
Yeah.
And for me, even so, I had a movie rights deal a couple of years ago that I actually asked to get out of because I didn't like how they were portraying the men in my life.
Oh wow.
And I wouldn't agree to it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, this is ridiculous.
They're
These
going
guys,
for the normal Hollywood like recipe.
Everything.
I tend to be so. I mean, it was the same. You heard the same stuff when like The Blind Side got made.
Yeah.
I mean, I just feel like there's like this bullshit Hollywood formulaic, system of the way they write these stories, and they always stick to the same thing because I guess that's what's worked before.
Yep.
I don't know. It's silly.
And look, when my story gets told, it will either be told the right way or it won't be told, right? Like it's,
right.
I'm not going to let these men who were fantastic come out looking like a bunch of jerks. Like it's not the way it is. Or to let these women be not acknowledged because the things that I did that people say were outstanding in this, a lot of that was driven by the strength of the experiences and support that I had from these outstanding women. And I always say, like, I might have been the one out front, but I was backed by all of these women and we went through the same things. And if you don't understand what we went through as women, then it would never make sense why I did the insanity of playing with guys, right? Like, because it was like, at the point of someone has to change this. And I guess that's what I'm here for, and so, yeah, but it's interesting. And yet I think the conversations we need to have are the ones who show how good men and women can be together. That it's not men versus women. There's enough of that.
And real quick, what we're going to do is we're going to get into our beer of the week and our shot of the month. Our beer of the week this week is from Edinburgh, and it is called Krabby's Original Ginger Beer. And I opened this up, and when I drank this, my whole mouth was just consumed with ginger. I didn't expect that because we've had chocolate beer, we've had all kinds of stuff, and it still kind of had the beer taste, but this was more so ginger that I got hit in the face with. So for those of you watching live, that's what the bottle looks like. Has a little elephant on the front. Shout out to Krabby's Ginger Beer.
What is it? Is it a ginger elephant?
I don't know. It might be a ginger elephant. It could very well be. We don't know. But
and you stepped your game up since last time. Last time it was PBR.
You can't go wrong with
this game up.
And then our shot of the month is a very easy one. We have a lot of live on-site recordings this month coming up, so we might not be able to take stuff in. So this month,
you may recognize your shot of the month from many long nights over the toilet.
Yes, it is the good old Meister, which is my go-to at my wedding.
I love Jägermeister.
Bridesmaids were chugging Jaeger up in the house. So Jaeger, I know, is sold at every bar. So when we go do our features, our brewery features, one coming up next month at Brewing, if we can't take in the shot of the month, we at least know that they have it there and provide it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take the shot of this beautiful elixir that I have here in this bottle, and that will be that. Oh man! And one thing I realized is that it sat here for almost an hour and it got warm. And Jaeger is not great warm; it's great.
No, it's not.
Almost frozen.
It tastes very medicine-y when it's warm.
Yeah. And Jen, what I'm going to do real quick is we're going to ask you one more question.
I got one question. Back to coaching real quick. Is there one player in the NFL you can name who is just a nightmare to try to game plan against?
I mean, there's a lot that are nightmares to game plan against. I think, and you see some of them now today, right? I mean, let's look at Cam, for example, because I'm going back to when Cam was in his prime, and obviously they beat the Cardinals in 2015. What makes him so dangerous is, first of all, you can't just put one person on him because he is like an Adonis. He is giant and fast and built, right? Yeah. He is one of the largest men I have ever seen in my life. Like, it's not even you know, they're like, I've played against Cam or like with Cam in a kickball tournament, and like I knew he was
awesome.
big. And it's his kickball tournament. Like Cam doesn't play golf. He's not having a golf tournament. He's having kickball.
That's
and
awesome.
When I really learned about how competitive he is like he showed up to his own kickball tournament in Timberlands.
Nice.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna kick this over the fence. And by the way, if you're ever doing a tournament, you should definitely do it Cam Newton style, because his rule in the kickball tournament was, when I beat you, I get to take your 2 best players.
Oh,
right. So this was my theory for the NFC lease last year, is that they should have had that, because then maybe one of the teams could have been competitive.
As an Eagles fan, I will concur.
yes, as you should. But I mean, so I was originally against Cam. And then he was like, yeah, coach, I beat your team. Now you're coming with me. Right. But when we played against them, you can't just have one person spy him, because who are you going to have spy him? Right. You think that like a safety is going to be able to take him down one-on-one? Probably not. Right. Is a linebacker side to side going to be fast enough? No. So you probably have to have alternate edges looking for which way he goes, and has to then take one of your big boys to bring him down. So the size speed comparison becomes very difficult, and you definitely have to dedicate a spy to him. So if you can give him the receiving threats, then that means you're already one man down and you can't double up as much in the end zone. And that's the formula that worked for so long. So look for that with Josh McDaniels, to be able to take the handcuffs off that he had when he had a non-mobile quarterback in Tom Brady. So Cam, for that reason, is very difficult to game plan against. There's also guys that are really tough because they read so well, right? Like Aaron Rodgers can create space in the pocket. If you take a bad angle, he's going to devastate you. Derrick Henry, from a running back perspective, I mean, come on, like that's all I'm going to say, right? And then now, even from a game plan's perspective, let's go to the Browns, right? The Browns have receiving threats when you get Odell back, but what makes them deadly right now is that 2-headed monster in their backfield that is behind arguably the best offensive line, which means you're not just able to game plan in one way. It's knowing that they're going to beat you some ways, and how can you hedge your bets? Also, one of the notoriously best game plan coaches from a defensive side of the ball is Bill Belichick. And part of what makes him so deadly is that most teams game plan for a team and then they make adjustments at halftime, right? From what I understand and what I've seen in watching it, Bill Belichick does not do that. What Bill Belichick does is comes up with a first half game plan and a second half game plan. So even the offenses, as they go to adjust to what the Patriots did in the first half, they're not adjusting to what they think that they're going to do in the second half. Okay. So that is a very cool, unique strategy that has made the Patriots defense so tricky for so long. And
the Patriots have been insane for a long time.
And he's so innovative in the things that he did. Like, he used to stretch his defensive line when he had the big net, when he had, oh gosh, what was his name? I can't even think of it now. Like, one of the best nose tackles to ever play the game.
Talking about, I can't think of his name either.
Giant dude.
Big white boy.
Yeah.
Yes. And I can't think of him. I think he has a barbecue brand now. But he used to do that, and then they would spread their splits so that the other team's angles were bad, right? Like, like other people are playing checkers and Belichick is playing chess. So notoriously, and then on an offensive side of the ball, like, let's just talk trying to game plan against somebody like Patrick Mahomes, right? He breaks all of the rules of how you're supposed to throw a football, the things that are supposed to work and there aren't, right? Like, like, if anybody just looked at the way he throws the ball from a coaching perspective, you'd be like, no, that's so terrible. We don't teach that. And yet you can't teach that, right? Like, there is the hybrid baseball, football dominance. Yeah, that you're seeing, he's got it. Kyler Murray's got it.
Football,
right.
Pretty much. Yeah.
And then you have the speed, right? So what do you have? I mean, you have Mecole Hardman, you have Tyreek Hill. The only thing that could have shut them down, and we saw it play out, was that those tackles were gone, right? If they had their regular offensive line in. Now, I'm not saying that Todd Bowles' defense wouldn't have had some tweaks, because they are very multiple as well, but they wouldn't have been able to shut down all of that speed, right? It was just, I mean, it's decimation when, you don't have tackles. Like, that's just going to be a bad day. But all of those guys, it's, it's not just one person necessarily that you're game planning against. It's what elements can you take away? And where can you win on certain matchups? And, that to me is what's fun. Like, look at Lamar Jackson last year, right?
Oh, yeah. I would love to see a Mahomes Lamar Jackson Super Bowl. That would be great. Just those two going at it,
especially now that Lamar actually has some receivers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like last year, you could shut them down because they weren't throwing anything outside the hashes, because they just didn't have the weaponry. So look at some of the weaponry now that he has around him. And not only does he have that mobility threat, which he does, but you shouldn't have to rely on, because from a longevity perspective, eventually we'll be able to take that away. Right.
Yeah, so that's the one time I scream at the TV is when like he's just, you see him pushing for every inch, and it's like, just like sitting there bracing for him to get whacked in the knee like RG3 or something.
Yeah, and my fear was him ending up like RG3.
And you've seen that with Cam too, right? People forget it and they want to be hard on him now, but he's been hit and hit and hit.
Yeah.
And the rules are often different with a mobile quarterback, right? Like, if Tom Brady had taken the abuse that Cam Newton had, there's no way he'd still be playing. Right. But that's a lot of the times what you see. So I don't know that there's just one person that's a nightmare to game plan again. Although I will say, from a defensive perspective, two guys that are very hard for teams to game plan against are, number one, let's go Seattle with Jamal Adams, who I still have a problem with as a defensive line coach, with him having the highest sack count, but he's a beast and I want him. I'm just saying I would absolutely dismantle all of my D linemen if they were letting a safety have more sacks than them. We have a problem. But the other safety that I love, and he is magic on the field, is Ty Matthew. That guy is one of the most devastating players in the NFL at 5'8". And he can sack you on one play and will pick you off in the next. And if he would have gotten into his zone, i.e. that one interception wasn't called back against the when they were playing against the Bucs in the Super Bowl, I think you start to see a different game, because when he is in his zone, he is a problem.
Yeah. And Jen, what we're going to do is we're going to let you get ready to get out of here. I know you need to get onto a flight soon. Real quick, can you say, this is Dr. Jen Welter and you're listening to the Happy Hour podcast?
Sure. Awesome. This is well, not when you say it. No, I'm just kidding. This is Dr. Jen Welter, and you are listening to the Happy Hour podcast.
Thank you. We appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and let you go, and we're going to keep on rolling here on Facebook Live. And we appreciate you being here. Anything you ever need, let us know. We'll promote it for you. We'd love to have you on again in the future. Thanks, Jen.
Absolutely. And apologies to have to switch the time, guys. I'm just getting used to a new time zone. So
it's fine. It's fine. You would not believe how much of an issue we've had with that. And, I'll sit there and I'll be like, hey, are you guys good at 8? And, I'll sit there and forget that if I say 8, they're going to be like, oh, okay, cool, 8. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, they're in California. I forgot all that.
And I will give you guys a heads up why I have to leave and catch this. I'm catching a flight to head to Austin, Texas. I will be doing a football camp with Tyreek Hill.
Oh, nice.
Tomorrow. And if you have not seen it yet, there is video footage. I have taught Tyreek Hill how to tackle. So if he makes a play, and I already have informed him of this, if he makes a touchdown saving play next year and makes that tackle, he's got to tell them all he's been hit by, or he was taught how to tackle by a girl.
Nice. That's good stuff. And actually, pretty funny, right before you go, there were a few people who saw our graphic and thought you were Mariska Hargitay from Law and Order SVU. I had 3 people go, is that, they said they looked quick and they were like, is that Mariska? Have you ever been compared to anybody like that? Or
I have, and that is one I have heard more than once.
Okay.
And I am a huge Law and Order fan, so I will take that compliment
nice.
to the bank. If she needs a stunt double, I think she should holler.
Yeah, and I mean, Chris Maloney just came back. You can't beat Elliot Stabler. Like, I stopped watching for a while, and then Stabler came back. Yeah,
Stabler's back, and he has his own show.
Yes. That show.
I'm so thrilled by it. I'm so thrilled.
They're making us wait for that note. They're making us wait till the last episode, and they touched on it a little bit. This one, when he's like, "Oh yeah, he wasn't thinking about you. Yeah, he was thinking about somebody else." And you're like, "You sons of bitches! You've been doing this to us." And the finales both are on the same night, so that's going to be insane.
It's going to be a crossover. It's going to be like a look, they're finally going to get together. Let's just be honest. They're finally going to get together. They have to. They have to. Who has not been waiting for that to happen? And he was married before, so it wouldn't have been a good look for her. We would have hated Olivia, and we can't hate Olivia. But now, it's going to happen. It's got to happen.
Definitely. And Jen, once again, thank you. We appreciate you being on the Happy Hour podcast. We will be in touch.
Hey, my pleasure. And I'm going to say the only memories I have of Jägermeister, it was one I stayed away from, but playing college rugby. Okay. I'm going to give a shout out to my roommate, who's one of the best humans you ever want to meet, Jessica Pignataro. Okay. She was our social secretary. And I think, she might have lived exclusively on Jägermeister. And every time I see it, I cannot help but think of one of the best humans I know, Jessica Pignataro. I have not seen her in years, and yet she is one of those people that it will be like no time has ever passed, because we always shout each other out. But I immediately thought, and her nickname back then, here's the funny part, was Jailbait, because when she was first there, she was 20. Right. So the vets would be like, no, don't you dare. She's Jailbait. And so, she was young in college. Nice. So there you go.
Nice. Good.
So Jägermeister and Jessica Pignataro, they go together like rugby and songs. I'm just going to leave it at that. And makes me really glad that social media wasn't as big when I played rugby, because some of those songs, you think your card game's tough, you need to look up some rugby sounds.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Spoiler alert, if you've never heard them. There is one that the women used to sing. And by the way, if you mess up a song, it's like, you have to shoot the boot, which is obviously would never happen in COVID, but someone takes off their game worn cleat from the name.
Oh yeah. They drink out of the shoe.
Yeah.
And they drink out of the shoe.
That's delicious.
But that is the punishment for messing up a song. And I will leave you with this. The song that all of the women sing is If I Were the Merry and Kind. And it's, if I'm the merry and kind, I thank the Lord I'm not, sir. But ... So you're going to have to look that one up.
I'll look into it.
Oh,
yeah. The kind of rugger that I would marry would be a rugby blank. All right. Y'all have a good one. You might have to drink to that.
Have a
See you
good
later.
night.
You too.
And of course, that was Dr. Jen Welter, first female coach in the NFL. One thing I just want to get to real quick is this is Memorial Day weekend. Shout out to all the troops out there. I'm wearing my camo shirt with my camo Orioles hat. My dad, three-time Purple Heart Vietnam veteran.
My dad in Korea.
Yeah. Psycrotes' dad was in Korea. So shout out to all the veterans out there. It's insane that my dad, our logo done by Steve Freeman the logo was done. And I asked him if he could do the camo in the style of 68 and 69, the years that my dad was in Vietnam. So those shirts exclusively, which are available on the Happy Hour, HHPod.com, the Happy Hour podcast website, have that exclusive logo with the camo on it. Make sure you go pick one up. So just shout out to all the troops out there. Anybody watching, thank you for joining us. Of course, Matt, thank you once again. Plug your new album for anybody.
I will. Listen, I was on here last time talking about this. This was coming to fruition, and it's here. I have physical copies. They're available for download at scissorfist.bandcamp.com. Also, it's on the streaming networks and all that kind of stuff. Just keep in mind, like streams. I want people to listen to it, but it doesn't like streams are a joke as far as like, I mean, putting this all together costs money. So like, if you want to help a brother out, you can go buy a physical copy. I have some signed ones. They're $10, and I don't charge anything for shipping as long as you don't like. You're in some place.
30 of them, and you live in Serbia. I'm in Serbia. I'm like 30 Scissorfist.
The continental United States, I won't charge. There will be no shit.
What you should do is, now that COVID's lifting, you should go to New York and hustle some of the CDs. Like, have you ever been to New York and you get those guys that be like, "Hey, look, I'm a rapper," and they hand they just
check out my mixtape.
They're like, "Here you go. Take my CD," and then they're like, "Oh, well, that's going to be $20." And you're just like, "Gave me a CD." Like, I feel like that's the ultimate way of making money. Just be like, "Hey, look, I'm giving out sodas. Here's a soda. That's going to be $2." And it's just like, wait, I
don't have it in me to fuck with people that hard. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but it's not a bad idea.
Yeah,
I'd have to be halfway drunk to do something like that. I'd be afraid somebody's going to hit me or something. Yeah, they're gonna get sick of my shit.
And of course, on our commercial break, you heard one of Scissorfist's song. So make sure you pick up their album. Make sure you support Jen Welter and everything she does. We will be back next week. We will be live. We will be out of the studio. COVID is finally over. So one part of the Happy Hour podcast that we're proud to say is that one thing we want to do is go out to breweries. We want to go to distilleries. We want to go out wherever, and we want to feature them on our show. So if you want us to come out and feature your distillery, feature your brewery, let us know. If you're very far away, you're going to have to fly us out, because I ain't driving out there for free. That ain't happening. However, we will feature you on our show. Next week, we will be live in Columbia, Maryland at Hysteria Brewing Company. We will be sitting down with Ty Chris. He's one of the representatives. We're going to be going over their new tap room that they have over there. We're also going to be doing a brewery tour, which will be exclusive to our Patreon, because you either pay $3 and see what the brewery looks like on our Patreon, or you go to Hysteria Brewing Company and do the
but that version isn't as much fun. You should pay for the $3 one. That will be more fun. And
the whole thing is Matt, especially if you're available, definitely come out. Everybody come out. You want to meet us?
I might do that. I've gotten my 2 shots. I'm ready to live again. You know what I mean? I haven't really made a whole lot of plans so far.
Yeah, and also don't forget episode 52, the 1-year anniversary, June 12th, live at Beefalo Bob's, Fort Smallwood Road in Curtis Bay, Maryland. We will be there. It will be myself. It will be 12th. It will be Matt. It will be Mike. The whole crew will be there.
Mike possibly.
Yeah. Mike may possibly be there. I don't know where he is right now. We never know where he is. He doesn't know where he is. So also, in addition to us, you will also get local comedian Tommy Simbazo, who's one of our favorite people. He always helps out with the show. You will also
Pro
get
wrestling superstar
Bobby Starr, who was in WCW and WWF. He's also very, very known here in Maryland. You will also get Humanitarian of the Year, Bubba Almany. We're going to be at his celebrity basketball game. I'm sorry, the shots are kicking in a little bit, but his celebrity basketball game coming up in August in Snow Hill, Maryland. We will be a part of that. We will also have author David Gilbert, who I'm surprised is coming back on the show after Matt completely creeped him out with our Would You Rather segment that we had. And just so much going on. Also, former NFL star Vincent Painter. He's going to be joining us live, the owner of Chesapeake Apothecary, which I always have a hard time saying that word. So make sure you join us live. Buy a sandwich at Beefalo Bob's.
And maybe even a soup like the high priest.
That's July 12th, right?
For barbecue. And of course, Matt, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, man, pleasure.
Anytime
I'll see you at Beefalo Bob's, unless I gotta double check to make sure. But I'll definitely come down. That's right down the street from me.
And my good friend Billy,
I love Beefalo Bob's.
My good friend Billy, he said Al Snow will be there. Unfortunately, Al Snow will not be there.
No, the reason he won't be there is because I will be there.
And one thing I forgot about is I meant to ask Jen to coach Psycrotes on what he needs to do when him and Al Snow finally come.
You know what? Honestly, I think maybe she should be
face to face.
She should be coaching Al.
Yeah,
he's the one that's going to need the help.
Yeah. So, anyways, everybody, thank you for joining us on the Happy Hour podcast. Matt, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Clutch as always. This is right. Of course, we will see you next week live at 3 p.m. Eastern time, either in person at Hysteria Brewing Company or on Facebook Live, or you can hear us wherever you find your podcasts. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We will see you next week.